The touch of your hand makes me tremble with it. Love the smell of your hair.
Man, feeling well, man.
What's your name?
My name is Cardi Cornish.
And you a legend?
I'm a legend.
You're a legend here in Baltimore City. Where we at right now?
We live in the 17, Pennsylvania Avenue. The legendary Pennsylvania Avenue.
Man, the last time I saw you here, you were doing something just across the street here. What were you doing?
Oh yeah, I had some food left over from an event. We brung it out. We fed a couple of people, man.
Why you do that?
Nice soul food.
Why you do that?
Man, the love that God has shown me in Christ, man, it overflows. That's how it overflows.
Yes, sir.
We got more than we can use.
Already was high within San Antonio, Winchester community, but the age group is getting younger. Children under the age of 18 being murdered in San Antonio has a high peak right now. So our goal is to catch the children.
And as time goes by, I know I'm in a
Damn.
You going hard, man. You going hard on that man today.
So what do you think, Mr. Mayor? You got manufacturing right here, helping our young people despite all of the challenges in the city of Baltimore, right here on North Avenue.
No, it's really about the growth. Just knowing where, being there when they were down in Fort Covington and seeing how far it's grown. Like you said earlier, like getting the Sorbet, you know, where we got the Sorbet at the beginning, but now being able to, when I'm at Cannon Yards, get it, or anytime I'm down at Harbor Place to get it, and folks to not even know, but they gonna know now that like this is coming from young people in West Baltimore, right there in West Baltimore on North Avenue, where they think nothing great comes from, but they can see it in what the young people do.
It's the things that you do.
Here on the Pike, Mississippi, with our very dear friend Floyd Mathis. A beautiful town, just leaving Algiers, which is an update 10 years since Katrina. The news.
It's a smile on your face. And as time goes by, I know I'm in a better place. I'm in a better place.
All right, y'all, this is what I came to New York for. Besides the Black Wall Street Awards, we're going in here and get some of this real good jerk chicken. Johnny Glover, out.
Your skin, just the touch of your hand makes me tremble with it.
But we need to feed our loved ones. DOCS needs to rescind this package policy program so that our loved ones are able to eat every day in that filthy facility that
we have some stars in the building.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover, entered the winner for the long haul, baby. It's the end of the week, December 27th. Just a couple more days left, and then it'll be 2025. And as we go into this new year, we will also have a new president. Here to discuss that and other political developments. First, we have David Byrd. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Doni. How are you? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and everyone, all your listeners.
Yes, sir. Happy holidays to you too. Attorney Robert Dashiell. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Doni. Good morning, David. How are the both of you?
Very good, sir. Very good. Good to see you.
So let's start with let's see who's the elder here.
You never have any question about that. Otherwise, why are you trying to start something just before the new year?
Okay. Mr. Burns, you got to cut your camera on. I'm not sure what's going on. There you go. Okay. All right. We also have Rodney Burns. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Rodney. Good morning, Rodney. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, brother.
Well, Rodney, let's start with you. We know who the elder is, so we also know who the junior is. Well, what's happening with you? You've covered the White House.
Yes, sir.
What's your forecast for 2025?
Man, I saw a clip of Trump. I saw two clips of Trump this past week, and he sounded sensible. Mr. Dashiell, I don't know if I've ever used those words in the same sentence in my life. I hope it's the start of something promising. I hope that the shenanigans and the antics that we have seen over his entire run in the public sphere may be a bit tempered this time going in. I don't know what would trigger that, but I would like to remain open to the opportunity. Doni, your team of young ladies that we brought on, the conversations that we have about covering the news and sharing it to urban America is not to simply focus on the problems, but where the opportunities. And I think a lot about when the news share road closures, right? Tell us where to go. Don't simply tell us the blockages, but what can we do as urban America, as Black people in this situation, to make the most of the current situation? So that's the forecast. That's what we're looking at as a team. I'm glad to be a part.
Mr. Byrd, what's your prognosis for 2025?
I think 2025 is going to be a very interesting year. I think it's going to be a disruptive year. I think it's going to be an innovative year. But I think it's going to be quite different than people expect. And Mr. Trump has started that by the way that he has conducted his own transition. It's very interesting. I'm an amateur historian. I study government, the way it works, the way people transition from administration to another. And the mere fact that he's doing his transition completely from Mar-a-Lago, there's no office open in Washington, D.C. in previous years, presidents to orderly transition of power, the way he's doing it there, even the way he's conducted. He just opened an office last week for the Presidential Inaugural Committee. I think is quite fascinating. He's kept a lid on leaks, information coming out. When it was in Washington, D.C., you found out a lot of information ahead of time that hasn't happened. Brother Burris has said something interesting. Maybe some sensibility. There's some order to this, even though it has thrown people off by the way he's doing it. There seems to be some order to this. It's going to be interesting to see how this dodge works with Mr. Musk and Mr. Ramaswamy, because people are starting to think it's a government agency, and it's not. They have no power. They're not even a commission under official government standards. The only thing that they can do is offer recommendations. They have no formal authority. It's going to be interesting to see how that works. So I think 2025 is going to be interesting. It's going to be disruptive. It's going to be innovative.
Do you think there will be room for Black people?
Yes, but Black people are not going to. Yes. First of all, to answer your question, yes. The second part of the answer is Black people are not going to be able to sit back and wait for the game to come to them. As always, they are going to have to be disruptive and innovative in the game. Every time Black people have gotten involved in something, whether it's a Donnie Glover, whether it's a Wilt Chamberlain, whether it's in football, whether it's a Michael Vick, they bring certain abilities and certain talents that change the game. Black people are going to have to look at politics like as any other business and be disruptive and innovative and change the game. There's room, but you're not going to have to. Don't wait for an invitation. Just walk in. Just make your presence known.
Mr. Dashiell, your thoughts?
I agree and disagree with almost everything that's been said. Trump is not the issue. Steve Bannon is, and Steve Miller is. I think that watching Trump is like trying to see where the P is in the shell game. We know he's a chameleon. You can't believe or trust anything that he says. But the people behind him, the Steve Millers and the Steve Bannons and the Oath Keepers, those are the ones that pose the greatest threat, not just to Black folk, but the poor people and to America generally. The reason why he's conducting his transition from Mar-a-Lago is that he doesn't want to disclose where the money's coming from to pay for it, unlike every other president has done. He has not availed himself of the $10 million from the GSA to cover the cost of transition because he doesn't need it. because of where the money's coming from and who's providing it to him. I think that our challenge is as American blacks, and I have to and I've come to that nomenclature advisedly, trying to figure out something that I could refer to myself as that nobody else was going to claim because nobody else could prove that they were entitled to it. So I prefer now to be an American black, not Black American, because that includes Elon Musk. Not Negro, because that's too pejorative. I chose that last time we were on the air. I've changed. But but the fact is, we've got to agree as a people on who to follow, who's the leader. We've got to stay focused on what our objective is, not just going asking or demanding anything. We got to know where we're going so that we'll be sure when we get there, if we do. And I don't think we're going to get there in my lifetime. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm not vain enough to think if I don't see it, that means it didn't happen. So I think that our goal, America owes black people a debt. That's what we got to stay focused on. I'm not going asking for anything. I'm saying pay your bill. Pay your bill. I don't want to talk about anything else. I don't want to talk about Ukraine. I don't want to talk about South Korean troops. I don't want to talk about anything. Pay your bill. First things first. If we stay focused on that, and if we choose the right leadership, then we'll be just fine. We'll be as fine as we can be because our position is always a struggle. It's not just a struggle for us, it's a struggle for anybody. Because government doesn't exist for the Trumps and rich people. Government exists to protect people like you and me. They don't. What the hell do they need government for? And Dodge has as much power as Trump wants to give it by executive order. He is the king. Here's a guy that wants to take Greenland, thinks it's for sale. He's a guy that wants to take the Panama Canal, thinks he can go and just take it because he wants it. Here's a guy that wants to annex Canada and Mexico. He's no small threat, but we know what their playbook is. It's already laid out in Project 2025. We know what the playbook is. It's never changed. We're the one. We got to stop acting like we forget. And we got to remember America owes American black people a debt, in my opinion.
Donnie, can I ask Mr. Dashiell a question?
Sure.
Burgeoning leaders, Brother Dashiell, who do you see in Black America that are potential to kind of fill that space? I almost said that's a $64,000 question. That's a $64 trillion question. Because our leadership doesn't come from among us. Our leadership doesn't come from among us. We don't have the capacity to heal ourselves. We got to pick a leader from above.
Wow. David, are we victims or victors as Black Americans or American blacks?
We're both. We're both. I agree with a lot of what the Brother Dashiell said. He's on point in a lot of the things he said. Donald Trump represents America imperialism of another time. When Brother Dashiell talks about the wanting of Greenland, the wanting of Canada, annexing Canada, I'm sure the NFL would love that so they could take over the Canadian Football League. When he talks about those big things, that's in America, the Panama Canal. If you know the history of the Panama Canal and Theodore Roosevelt, and then the fight to give the Panama Canal over to Panama during President Carter's administration. If you know the history of the Panama Canal and the talk about actually building a second Panama Canal, then you can understand the whole the discussion that Mr. Trump says is America of another time, when America was the imperial power of the globe, actually, of the globe, when Theodore Roosevelt talked about wielding his big stick. But we're both victims and victors. And the reason I say we're both, because of what I said earlier, we're innovators, we're disruptors, but we're also, a lot of our folks are victim of traumatization, are trapped in a cycle where they can't pull themselves out. And like Brother Dashiell is not just us. There's a lot of people trapped into that cycle. We aren't the only ones. You know, it'd be easy to point, you know, it's just like we always said, they demonize Black people on welfare. Well, you know, if you just look at the numbers in this country, there's more white people on welfare than Black people, right? Just look at the numbers, right? So we're not the only ones that are trapped here, right? There's a large part of the rest of the population that are trapped as well. But what we have to do is we have to focus on the basics. Again, it's a return to the basics. We've got to get our kids, our folks retrained. We've got to get them into STEM careers. You know, there was a great article, Donnie, that appeared about 10, 15 years ago, and you can look it up on the web. But I just remember the title of the article. The title of the article was, "Are Black People Obsolete?" Right? Because the whole notion of the article was we were brought here to do the labor and the back-breaking work of this country. But once it went into automation, once it went into industrialization, where machines are doing the work, and look where we are today, machines are actually doing the thinking for people, right? Where does that leave us today? I still say the same thing that our folks from the Harlem Renaissance, our folks coming out of slavery did, is that we become the innovators and disruptors. Look at what HBCUs have done to provide the majority of the Black middle class in this country, right? HBCUs survive. You've got look at what the state of Tennessee has done to the HBCUs there. They owe them something like $4 billion because of disparity between them and the white institutions. But yet we continue to innovate, we continue to thrive, we continue to build, and we have to keep doing that. We have to take advantage of the opportunities out there today and keep moving. And I'll give you one example. A lot of HBCUs have land. One of the biggest things that are needed in this country today are AI-powered data centers. Each data center is $1 billion project. Why not build them on HBCUs?
That's innovative.
So the article by columnist James Klingman of the National Newspaper Publishers Association is featured in the Washington Informer down in Prince George. They're headquartered in Prince George's County, right, David?
Yes.
Blackonomics. Are Black people becoming obsolete? I got to share with you a few lines from that. Coalition building is the best way for Black people to make the kind of progress we need to make in this country, especially when it comes to economic empowerment. Some have posited that Black people are swiftly becoming obsolete. From the agricultural economy to the industrial and mass production economy, Black folks in some cases had it going on. Many individual Blacks did quite well with jobs and businesses in those areas. As we move through the technology information economy and now to the knowledge-based economy, the rules for survival have changed just a little bit more. Are Black people as a group becoming obsolete? Someone said all shoes have been shined and all the cotton has been picked, Mr. Dashiell, which suggests that Black people are no longer needed by white folks. Therefore, if we do not change our ways when it comes to business and job development, we will indeed become obsolete.
Well, you know, the people who wrote that, Donnie, need to spend some time talking to Brother Byrd, and they will understand that the so-called progress in this country didn't happen with Black folks sitting on the sidelines. It happened because we did it. We were the Henrietta Lacks. We invented the GPS. We invented everything from the paperclip to the automotive engine to the vacuum cleaner to the refrigerator to the HVAC. We did that. That's why America owes us a debt. Not because we pick cotton, not because we cut tobacco, but because the invention, the progress in this country was made from the inventiveness that we came here with. They may have brought us here for the purpose of providing involuntary servitude, but that's not what we did when we got here. Not only that, but we got to remember that this country belongs to us too. our ownership didn't begin with the 13th and 14th Amendment. Our ownership began the same way they did, when our feet hit the ground. It didn't matter what part of the boat you got off of. You hit the same ground. Plus, we were here before. I put that aside for just a moment.
Speak on that, though.
We were here. We were here in the beginning.
That's correct.
White people are not indigenous anywhere in the world, right? We were here in the beginning. So don't be led by the traditionalists who talk about black folk as though history has moved beyond us. That we're not part of the future. We are the future.
A major part of my role publicly, professionally, is to give us as a people permission to be different and better, right? So I do that through my work and my activities. My daughter was making Thanksgiving dinner this past holiday season, and she started using all of these contraptions, the blenders, the chop, all of these kitchen tools.
Mm-hmm.
It gave her the opportunity to create dishes that we hadn't seen. She's a culinary professional. She's over at Morgan. She went to Carver, got all of her licensing. She enjoys being in the kitchen as a professional. This past time, she was doing some extra things. We as a people have to look at what's coming down the pipe, look at the trajectory, see these trends, look at the AI. So if we view ourselves as grocery scanner individuals with that skill set that starts and stops there, and don't appreciate that groceries can be beeped and scanned and bagged without a human touching it, which then could give us permission here, right, to be different and better, to be innovative, to be inventive. We will make ourselves, to use the phrase from that article, obsolete. However, if we realize that our history didn't start with the boat, Brother Dashiell,
Right.
Glover talks about that. If we realize that we are not just a victim, Brother Byrd, but also a victor, if we look at these opportunities, there's so much here that can be done. We're not just pumpers and washers and etc., but we got to look at ourselves that way, and that's a big part of my role, I believe, while I'm on this planet.
And the other thing we have to realize is that we have to use the law and the legal system to our advantage. One of the things, if you've not learned anything from Donald Trump in the last 8 years, if you've not learned any, and I'm not talking about his policies, I'm not talking about his ascension to office. One of the things that Donald Trump uses extensively to his advantage and to his forcefulness, I'll say, I'm not going to use the word bully, although he's bully people, but his forcefulness is he's used the legal system, right? We have to use the legal system. We've used that, Brother Dashiell, all throughout our history, but we have to continue and use it as a force of innovation and a force forward. And I'm gonna give you a terrific example. Why are a lot of these rappers today billionaires, right? Millionaires, billionaires, they own their own stuff, right? Why? Because Howard University took the lead, the law school took the lead to teach these folks how to use the copyright laws to make sure that they own their own stuff, right? So we have to continue to do the same, to use the legal system for the patents. As Brother Dashiell said, we've done everything from the GPS, the brother who invented the traffic light, everything in between. The first cell phone was put together by a brother who put that together, right? We got to continue to do that. And we got to continue to, as Brother Byrd said, give ourselves permission to do things just to be doing them, not because somebody else said, or they said you shouldn't be doing that. You know, this ridiculous stuff when I was growing up, black people don't swim, black people don't fence, black people don't do this, right? How many times did you hear that growing up? We don't play those sports, or we don't excel those sports, or that's whatever, right? Nonsense, right? Black people do everything, right? Because once we show we get into something, we are so disruptive that we begin to dominate it, right? Yes. So let's continue to do the same. There's nothing that should be off limits to our kids, to ourselves even. People are proving that they get into new careers in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. They're taking off and doing new things. And we should continue to do the same. I'm looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward to 2025 in the future itself, what I might do. I'm thinking about getting into teaching, right? I'm thinking about as I'm going into the end of my political and government career, I'm thinking about getting into teaching on the high school level because I want to help these young people figure it out.
Rodney, have we put too many of our eggs as Black people into the Democratic Party?
Yes. Because the reason why I believe we have put too many of our eggs into that basket is because the limited view of ourselves as Democrats, as a large population. Right now, there's always outliers and segments within us. We're not monolithic in that regard. There's pros and cons inside of either party, right? We have to be family first, community first. And I'm not saying that from a Black nationalist mindset or ideology. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is our allegiance should not be to a particular party versus the other, right? I'm not saying let's make a mass exodus over to the Republican Party. I'm saying what I've always been saying since I've started this journey as a young professional in America. Give ourselves permission to be more different, innovative, inventive, better. And if that means we don't stick to party lines, so be it, right? And then hold people accountable. I mean, it's a major reason why certain neighborhoods get their potholes filled and their streets cleaned and the snow removed. Is because they're involved, right? They're participating. There's direct correlation between the voices that speak up and the people that just sit by. We gotta move beyond just our ability to talk about these issues and empower. One of the things that I appreciate about you, Brother Glover, is when you gave us, so Doni gave us, as I mentioned, the permission to bring on this tactical unit, this team of dynamic young women. He gave them he coined the name Nefertiti Network for them, right? These young Black women are approaching the work. They're slow to get started, in my opinion. We just got them here. We're getting them going. But gentlemen, they are looking at what's going on from the White House, what's going on in urban America, and how can they, from the position of being Black women, that voice, speak to their sisterhood in a way that activates. I think that's where a lot of the power could start, generating from.
Mr. Dashiell, do you think we've put too many of our eggs as Black people in the Democratic basket?
I think we've put too many of our eggs in the political structure that's been created in this country, period. I don't think we are Democrats or Republicans first. I think we got to be Black first, like everybody else. The notion that we have to be one or the other undermines the natural position that we should have. We're the only group of people that I'm aware of in the world that started a movement where at the end of the day, we were supposed to become invisible. We called it civil rights. We didn't fashion civil rights. We didn't decide that affirmative action, which was not ours, was going to be ours. We didn't even decide on the 10%. Somebody else said that's as much as you could get without making them mad, too mad. The only real question is, and I said this before, and I'll say it again, and I apologize in advance for having to leave the show early, but the real question in the universe is, who decides who decides? See, the courts that Brother Byrd talked about are it's not a place for us to find any kind of respite, because the people sit with the roles now are different than they were 50 years ago. That tells me that I got to stop waiting to see who's there. I got to decide who's going to put the robe on in the first place. See, we got to start. Everything starts at the beginning. I don't care what you do. It all starts at the beginning. And when you try to get on board to something that's already moving without knowing what direction it is, then you got no clue where the hell you're going to wind up.
Dr. Seuss said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
That's exactly right. So I said we have to now let me say something. The coalition that the coalition that has to be formed is not among the so-called leaders. The coalition is among those people who were by design were intended to provide the fuel for the movement. In other words, capitalism as it exists today always depends upon there being a cadre of poor people that can be exploited. And as Brother Byrd said, we are not the only victims. In Baltimore City, you won't see a lawsuit brought for lead paint poisoning for white kids, as though white kids didn't get poisoned by lead paint. We know that ain't true.
They call us black gold.
They call it black gold. They call it black because our role, we've been portrayed as victims. That's our role. That's our mission. That is not true. That is not true. We've got to begin by teaching our children the truth about who we are and about whose we are. And about whose we are.
That's right. Brother
and to Brother Dashill's point, he points to one thing that I think is very, very integral to this whole thing, is that we cannot, when he talked about 50 years ago and today, and what that means to me is, and even Ronald Reagan said that, is that freedom is only one generation away from being gone, right? We cannot afford, we thought that once we won those civil rights victories, that it was over. We didn't need to do anything more. And in fact, as Brother Dashiell said, that is just the beginning, right? There was civil rights, then there was silver rights, economic empowerment. Now we're at cyber rights, right? Where are you going to be in cyberspace? Where are you on the, we used to call it the information superhighway, right? But where
I
are you?
I wish they leave my damn TikTok account alone come January.
Right. Exactly, right? Right. Now we're at the point where people can earn a very good living more digitally, right? They don't have to leave their house. They don't have to leave this screen, right? The tools are available where people can make a living, and we've seen, thanks to the pandemic, again, something that happened and we had to be innovative. It was disruptive. We've learned that people can do the work from the house, never leave, and still be as productive and run their own schedule. So,
Brother Dashiell, I'm sorry, Brother Byrd. I just know.
No. Go, brother. I was just making the point that we cannot stop. We've seen the conservative movement. They never let up, even when things looked as bleakest as they were for them 25, 30 years ago. They never stopped. They kept pushing. We took a break. We thought we won and we stopped. And guess what? Just like that old turtle and the hare, what happened was the hare took that sleep and the turtle caught up and passed him.
That's absolutely correct.
Rodney, how many times have you been to the White House this year?
7, 8, 9 times. Enough to get tired of that traffic going back and forth.
How many times do you think you'll go next year?
I don't even know if the opportunity will be available for us as Black media. I haven't lived through this administration. I talk a lot about your experience and how you started this 30 years ago and you've lived through administrations and the changes in access. My hope is that there's still a pipeline open for us to be able to reach out, connect, and then spread that news. It doesn't look promising in that regard. Brother Dashiell, I know you have to leave. I want to tell you two things. One, a major part that I appreciate about Donnie Glover is his emphasis on the fact that our history didn't start with a slave ship, right? That we were here in many, many different capacities. That's something that's very passionate, driven for me. I found that out on my own. It's something that I didn't know I shared with him. Hearing you talk about it is refreshing. I actually already knew that you held those beliefs because I went to school with a young lawyer at Johns Hopkins. So, I've heard your daughter talk about you in very high regards for many, many, many years. So it's just a pleasure to really have this conversation and meet you kind of in person, Brother Dashiell. Thank you for your legacy.
Thank you.
So David Byrd, we're going to need some access to that Trump White House. Last time around, Black media was limited. We hope maybe you can open some doors.
If I can, I will. I'm waiting for a call myself from them myself. So if I can, I will. And I've always done that during my political career on the other side of the fence. So if I can, I will.
Another thing, David, you've been pumping out some articles. Tell us about that news outlet. I think you invented it. You're keeping it on the hush hush. You're doing a lot of diversion and deflection, but I see your fingerprints all over it.
Well, I didn't invent it. I can't take credit for but BPA Livewire, which is a great platform that two sisters, Dee Dee Bass Wilbon and Dina Bass Williams, two sisters, the Bass sisters, I like to call them. They really put this platform together, really to give Black folks a voice on the conservative side of the fence, right? To highlight the Black activists, the Black political appointees, as well as other folks, not just Black people, but on the conservative side that you don't necessarily hear from, you don't see, and their voice does not get heard. And so I did not invent it. I did not come up with it, but they have allowed me to take a participatory role. I love the way with Brother Burrs, because my mother said, this is a participatory democracy, right? For those who participate.
That's right.
Right? And so they've allowed me to become a participant, to put together some articles and to put my articles out there for all to see. And I've taken advantage of it because this last election, I thought I had something to say, Donnie. And I wanted to say it and I wanted to amplify it out there.
Brother Byrd, for those who may not know, what is your role in the White House?
Well, so let me be very clear. I never worked in the White House, although I've been very fortunate to be an appointee of 3 past Republican administrations. The last 3 Republican administrations, I have been a presidential appointee. Started out in Bush 1, Bush 2, and the first Trump administration. And I worked my way up. I've also been fortunate enough to work for 3 Republican governors. I worked for Governor Kane of New Jersey, Governor Whitman of New Jersey, and Governor Ehrlich and Lieutenant Governor Steele of Maryland.
Oh, wow. What was the appointment federally? I'm sorry, go ahead, Donnie.
Yeah, I started my career out at the Department of Education, working for the first Black Assistant Secretary for Post-Secondary Education, a guy named Dr. Leonard Haynes, who's in retirement, living in Silver Spring, Maryland. He was he was confirmed by the U.S. Senate 98-0 in Bush 1. Then I worked for one of the first Black cabinet officers who were not HUD. That was Dr. Lewis Sullivan of HHS, who had been the founder and dean of Morehouse Medical School in Bush 1. In Bush 2, I worked up in Social Security Administration over there in Baltimore, where Governor O'Malley is now the head of that agency. And then for a very short period of time, I worked at EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is his historic agency in itself that was created after the Civil Rights Acts, helping them put together a program for at that time was the 50th celebration of Board versus Board of Education. And then in the Trump administration, I went to work for Secretary Carson first, where I helped work on opportunity zones. And then I went over to work for Secretary Ross to lead MBDA, the head of MBDA. In fact, I hold a distinction in history where I am the last national director of MBDA, because then the Biden administration upgraded the role to an undersecretary position, which is Senate confirmed. So I'm the last person in the role before they upgraded it and made it a Senate confirmed position.
David, take me back to 2002. You being an amateur historian, and I don't buy that any more than I would buy crack cocaine on the corner. But when you think of what happened, particularly with then Senator Clarence Mitchell IV and the Democratic retribution that came to him for supporting what my elder at the time called a spear thrower for Newt Gingrich, Robert Ehrlich, Did it open up doors for us?
I think it did. I think it did, first of all, because I think if it wasn't for Clarence Mitchell IV and his family, first of all, what they did in Baltimore City and in Maryland in general, then there is no Michael Steele, Lieutenant Governor, which there and Michael Steele and Boyd Rutherford and Anthony Brown made it possible for Wes Moore to become governor, right? If you look at that trajectory, would have been no Anthony Brown without a Michael Steele. Would have been no Michael Steele without the activism of the Mitchell family and what they did for Black business, for Black economic empowerment in Baltimore City and throughout the rest of Maryland. See, you have to tie all that in together. You can't look at Michael Steele in a vacuum. You know, you look at him on MSNBC today, but where did he start? He started as the Republican Party chairman of Prince George's County when nobody wanted that job. Okay. He started, in fact, it was Michael Steele who fought against the redistricting plan of Mike Miller and others here in Prince George's County, and at a time when Black Democrats, Brother Burris, were afraid to challenge the status quo here in Prince George's County, and Michael Steele took them to court.
Because Mike Miller was, in fact, a bully also.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And so, and if you notice, now that Mike Miller and the other Mike, who was the Mike Bush are gone, the opportunities that have opened up, the political ramifications that are across the state of Maryland. Look at Adrian Jones, who's the speaker of the Maryland General Assembly. So when you go back, you talk about 2002, Michael Steele started out as Republican Party chairman of Prince George's County, then became one of the first Black chairmen of a state party across the United States.
And he stayed Black.
Yes, yes. And talked about Black business and talked about Black empowerment, right? And talked about all of those things unapologetically, as the title of Donnie Glover's book is, unapologetically, and became one of the most popular figures in the state of Maryland, right? People like and Michael Steele benefited off Wayne Curry, right? There you go, right? There it is, unapologetically Black. So those things have made it so where we are today, where you have this great opening, Calvin Ball, who's the Howard County executive. Okay, so we're moving beyond our realm, our neighborhood, our community, where we're moving across state lines, nationally, right? We're in places, Brother Burris, that people used to say we aren't supposed to be. Howard County, Frederick, Southern Maryland, right? All across the way in Virginia, we may have the first Black woman governor, right? And she may be a member of the Republican Party. And she's originally from Jamaica.
Let me tell you something else that happened back in that era. There's a young lady named Dawn Flight who came on the scene.
Now her name is Dawn Flight Moore. She's the first lady of Maryland. Absolutely. Yes, I met Sister Dawn. She's doing a great job.
She started off advising Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, who would not listen.
No, she didn't. In fact, thanks to Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, she gave Michael Steele an opportunity. Because if you know the story, which Donnie does, and I'm sure you do, Brother Burris, I don't know about your listeners, but it was the Black Caucus of Maryland had cut a deal with Kathleen Kennedy Townsend that she was supposed to, some people could have, I don't know if it was supposed to be Ike Leggett, that's what I was told, but she was supposed to pick a Black man as her running mate, and she decided to pick a retired admiral who was a Republican who had to switch parties to join her on the ticket. And
did y'all hear that? I don't know that they heard this. Mr. Byrd, please repeat that. This was the beginning of the Republican Revolution, where Maryland got its first Republican governor in 36 years, but it wasn't because it was because a Democrat did not do their job.
Absolutely. Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, a descendant of a great political family,
got caught up.
Made a huge mistake.
Damn right she did.
She had cut a deal with the Black Caucus of Maryland, led by Al Wynn, who's now doing some great work in the lobbying world, making money, and that she was supposed to pick an African-American man as her running mate, and she did not. And in fact,
he
the
said,
Black
I'm not
Caucus,
my father, I'm not my uncle.
That's
Step
right.
back.
That's right. And wait a minute, Donnie, but the Black Caucus was so upset that she didn't keep her word. They were supposed to take a group picture with her and distribute that throughout Maryland, and Al Wynn canceled that. He canceled that picture because she went and picked a white man who was a retired admiral who had
Charles R. Lawson.
That's right, who had to switch parties to join her on the ticket. And that created the door for Michael Steele, because Bob Ehrlich then, because he was the next, because unlike the law now, you didn't have to choose your running mate when you filed for office like you do now. Bob Ehrlich turned around and chose Michael Steele. And the numbers bear it out. For the first time, up until this point, the Republican Party of Maryland had never gotten more than 5% of the Black vote. And with Michael Steele on the ticket, the Republican Party got 15% of the Black vote.
The numbers speak for themselves.
Numbers speak for themselves. History changed in Maryland because Bob Ehrlich's election led to the eventual election of Larry Hogan to become, because Larry Hogan was a cabinet member in Bob Ehrlich's administration. People forget that. And that led.
He ran DGS, Department of General Services.
No, Donnie, he was the appointment secretary.
Who's that?
Larry Hogan was Bob Ehrlich's appointment secretary.
I was thinking about Boyd Rutherford.
Yes, Boyd Rutherford also got his start. Yes, he did in the Ehrlich administration.
And I tell you something else. You mentioned earlier, and I caught the term, and you used it. You spread it out. Innovative disruption.
That's right. That's
when you
right.
got the same Democrats giving out the same contracts to the same people, nothing changes, nothing changes. They say if nothing changes,
nothing changes.
Nothing changes. And that's exactly what happened in 2002 for them. Nothing changes. And then all of a sudden, there's a breakthrough where the Republican Party starts to think differently. And you're right, people even coined the phrase, they didn't want Bob Ehrlich because they said he was going to bring the new Gingrichization to Maryland politics. That's what they said of Bob Ehrlich, right?
Plus, he had that scary little fade, man. I mean, he really needed a barber to tighten that thing up. That thing, we're like, oh, who are you? But David, did blacks get more contracts? Now, I got to tell you, I despise the term minority business enterprise.
Okay. Why is that, Donnie?
It's a joke. If you want me to have a contract, just let me have the contract.
Right. Why do I have to get certified that I am who I am to prove
I'm black? Can't you see I'm black?
Right. That I deserve, or that I'm able to get this contract. And then we have, there's a whole bunch that's not that has to, it just doesn't work. One of the things that I fought for many years is reciprocity. If you're Donnie in Maryland and you're a black-owned business, why can't New Jersey accept that? Why do you have to get certified in Jersey to prove what you've already proven in Maryland and in Baltimore City? I had problems with that for years, and that's a whole nother discussion.
What I like about the Republicans is a phone call. It's a damn phone call. When O'Malley was running for office, we couldn't keep him off of Be More News. But as soon as they get in office, oh, Donnie, you got to go to the MBE website. I was good enough back then when you were hungry Bananas, you got a steak in front of you. Tell them to go to a damn website.
Right. Exactly. And see,
it's
this
done
is
on a phone call, Rodney. Not an email, a phone call. Hey, make sure you send some resources over there.
I have a question for you, gentlemen. When we look at Black leadership, we look at urban America, we look at the trajectory. Brother Dashiell was talking about getting behind a leader. Politically speaking, I believe Westmore is in a great position to be one of those major voices. Of course, I'm heavily biased. I know Wes, we're buddies. We done played ball in 8 Wings as college kids, for years, and we stay in touch today.
Blacks getting contracts
in the state of Maryland?
Yeah.
I don't know those numbers at all.
Oh, well, we got to know that, man. It's all about a phone call.
Yeah.
You got his number.
Yeah.
It's all about that. And here's another thing. If we only looking out for ourselves, David, tell him about James House.
Oh, my good friend James House, Jim House, who is unfortunately passed on for the ages. But for many years, Jim House was Mr. Republican in the state of Maryland. He was long time a Republican committee man to the Republican Party, the state party here in Maryland. He too was a presidential appointee in Bush 1 and Bush 2 at the Department of Agriculture, making sure that the what's now called SNAP, the old food stamp program, making sure that that got taken care of in our communities and in communities everywhere, not just Black community, but community everywhere. And also Jim was in charge of what Doni referred to the MBEs or the Office of Small Business Utilization, some acronym that they have it. That was Jim. And he made sure that those folks got contracts who came to his office. That was his thing. And he was a long time fixture here in Maryland politics. I used to love to talk to him. I even count him as one of my mentors as I was coming up through the political system.
Yeah, he connected me with a lady named Nettie. Nettie's the direct descendant of Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington.
Yes.
So moving forward, what's the plan, gentlemen? What's the plan for 2025? How much are we going to be a part of the future, Rodney?
Politically speaking, I believe that it's incumbent upon us as influencers, as people that have an ear to the ground, as people that have the hearts and the minds of the people, to rev up the notion that we have to broaden how we access information and how we share it, right? And get out of the silos, get out of the traditional channels. So that's the role that I am personally taking on. That's the charge that I've given myself and my team. We got to expand what those traditional avenues look like and really take advantage of some of these innovations that are coming down the pipe. Some things aren't even innovations, right? Some things are just there and not touched very much. That's what I see politically. That ideology, however, is what I see universally for Black people. The second thing that I think is important is more connection within the diaspora. Africa is a burgeoning economy, and I shouldn't even say Africa because it refers to it as if it's a small monolithic place. The economy in Ghana, South Africa, the movement away from the dollar, I don't know how much that is actually going to take place. I don't know if that's going to get shut down. The countries that have booted out France, right? The way that CARICOM and some of these Caribbean nations are banding together, not just in name and title, but actually doing a little bit more of it. I think we need to tap into it. Globally, we can become more and more of a force. China did it, right? 60 years ago, and I'm not 60 years old, but I remember being young and not having the impression that China was an economic force. Within my lifetime, that flipped. I believe the same can be true for the Black diaspora.
David, are you optimistic for 2025?
I'm terrifically optimistic for 2025, and I'll tell you why. Number one, I think from Maryland and then Prince George's County situation, you're going to have a special election. You're going to have new leadership in Prince George's County. In fact, there's going to be a special election on March 4th for the seat that's been vacated by the election of Angela Alsobrooks to the U.S. Senate. So I
Who
think.
wins that race?
I'm sorry?
Who wins that race?
Oh, I think Aisha Braveboy wins that race because she is the most experienced candidate who is a leader and who's known within the community of Prince George's County. She's the only candidate in the race who has served in the legislature, who served in the judicial branch, and who's served in the executive branch. I mean, she runs the biggest law firm in Prince George's County, which is the state's attorney's office, right? That's not only a leadership role, Brother Burris, that's a management role. That's an operations role. Right. If you can run the state's attorney's office, which is the #2 elected position in Prince George's County, you can run the county executive's office. And I think Miss Braveboy has proved herself in the community as a delegate. I think she's proved herself when she worked in the executive branch. And I think she's proven herself as a state's attorney. Crime is down, carjackings are down. She's been out there in the community. She's cared about returning citizens, giving returning citizens jobs, encouraged business to do that in Prince George's County. I think people realize what she's about. She spent her whole life, graduated from public schools in Prince George's County. There's nothing against the other candidates, but I think future county leadership is here, and I think she represents that.
Wow. Any final thoughts, gentlemen, before we get out of here?
I would, Brother Burris, if you would allow me, before we clear off, I would be remiss if I did not, Donnie, recognize Mr. Richard Dick Parsons, who passed away yesterday. Mr. Parsons was once the leader of Citigroup and Time Warner, Black, Republican, worked for Governor Rockefeller, Vice President Rockefeller, was a business leader, and as well as a politician, and known as Mr. Fix-It. His obituary is in the New York Times and the Washington Post today. I advise everybody who's watching your program to read about Dick Parsons. I got to meet him. He offered me some great advice early in my career. God bless him and rest in peace. Great job, Dick.
Will Larry Hogan be making a run for governor in 2026?
Only if he's bored.
Do the Republicans have a bench?
Not in Maryland.
Rodney Burris, your final thoughts.
I look forward to the expansion of Be More News, having more and more national impact. That's something that we are working on behind the scenes as well. Thank you for this platform, Brother Byrd. It's amazing to connect with you. Donnie, thank you for your legacy and what you do, man.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, and thank